welcome back to week 8. Hope you're well and well. With the first assignment, absolutely everybody, I believe, had a acceptable and in some cases excellent presentations for the logbook and the reflective journals. Remember that reflective journals you have to write one a week. They have to time with the graduate attribute, so there has to be one for each graduate attribute, and then you've got the last few that you can do to suit yourselves, which means I think you could probably write them now and just bank them ready for submission. And so this week it's only a short one this week. I'm not sure why it appears this far into the course. It could be quite useful earlier on, but I couldn't change the order that they were coming in. So here we go. We're going to have a look at some just basic presentation skills. That's all we've got to do. So we've got the normal bits and pieces here. So different forms of communication. So you can shout at people, you can communicate over the phone, you can do a formal presentation. Obviously he doesn't know what he's doing. You can type reports. These time with the graduate attribute number 1 of communication. So we're just tying it back into this, just giving you a little bit of guidance on what to do. Let's look at spoken communication in the first instance. When you speak to somebody, we're going to talk about people that we don't talk to all the time. This could be the first time you've spoken to someone. A lot of what we'll be doing may be negotiating contracts, variations, or trying to transfer some information, guidance, requirements across to someone. In all respects, you really have to try and stay friendly and calm. There's no point shouting at people. As soon as you raise your voice slightly or use inappropriate language, they switch off. You're not going to get anywhere. Same thing if they do that to you. If you receive the call, then you really need to terminate that call as politely as you possibly can until they've calmed down. So friendly and calm. Before you speak to someone, think. We all have the problem that our mouth opens up before our brains kicked into gear. We'll say things which we then try and backpedal out of. Normally in a conversation you'll talk about something that's not involved in the work situation. You'll talk about the latest footy scores or something, just to create that link with somebody. You get an idea of what they're like and you adjust how you speak to them from that point onwards. But if it's a formal phone call and you know you're ringing somebody up to talk about a certain thing, just have a think about what you want to say to them before. Sometimes on a really important, complex call, I'll have a few bullet points written down and I'll tick them off as I mention them, so I know I've covered everything I need to cover. When you're speaking to people, be clear, nice and clear, and be direct. No point pussyfooting around the subject. More likely to arise when it's bad news you've got to give them, or it's something you've got to talk about that's not really in your interest or doesn't put you in the best light. You think they're going to be a negative response to it you're going to tell them. So be direct to the point, don't waffle, and be clear. So use the correct language. Some people, and I can do this at times, we talk too much. Now, if you talk too much, you can come across as dominating a conversation. It's a very difficult thing to stop doing. You need the best conversations when they're analysed with 2 people. Have normally got a 50-50 split roughly on who was talking at what time. So this comes back to being clear and direct. And if you think before you speak, you can cut out the waffle. You mustn't talk too much. I'm rambling on at the moment, but then it's a lecture and it's different, and there's nobody to interrupt me, and I don't have to listen to anybody. That comes with the tutorial. When you're talking to people, don't pretend to be something you're not. Don't pretend to be above them or below them, or just be yourself. Just be yourself. Be authentic. Be yourself. You'll know from your own experience talking to people, you can pick up almost instantly when someone's not being authentic. When would an example of that come across? Oh, I know, a salesman. If you go to buy something, or they knock at your door, or they ring you up from, I don't know, Mongolia, wherever the latest call centres are, they're not authentic. We know they're not authentic straight away. There's very few of them that are. The really good salesmen are authentic, but there's a totally different ballgame. So be yourself. Speak with confidence. So that doesn't mean you have to shout or be abrupt, but you can just speak with confidence. If something crops up that you don't know, you admit, oh, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I've got to check that. I don't know that. I just want to make sure I've got it right. But you're confident. But you mustn't come across as cocky and arrogant. There's nothing quicker to put people off than being cocky and arrogant. And you can pick up on arrogant people quickly. You've got to have humility, which in most conversations is okay. Sometimes it's a bit heated. So all these things are easier face to face when you can see someone, because you're subconsciously picking up on their body language as well. On an ordinary telephone call, it's more difficult, and if you just get an email instead, it's impossible. So actually face to face, video calling is brilliant because you can see each other. Phone calls, well, yeah, they're the next best thing. Body language, if you can see them, you'll pick up on it. You'll see if their arms are crossed. You'll see their facial expressions. And as we said, when being clear and direct, we want you to be concise. Don't say more than you have to. Don't talk too much. And, don't waffle. No point waffling. You turn people off, they're not listening to you. But the most important thing about conversation is to listen to the other side. Listen to the other parties. If you're in a meeting and you're all talking, listen to them. Be sincere. Show interest in them. I mean, some of the best salesmen show interest in stuff they really couldn't care about. But we try to be sincere and be interested in people because we're professionals, and a lot of the time it's quite enjoyable. And you have to listen to what they say and not drift off thinking about tonight's tea or looking at them and thinking, oh, they're an absolute prat, aren't they? Because you're not going to listen to what they're saying, which could be extremely important. And it's evident very quickly if people do listen or not. Written work. And you've had to go out the assignments, you've been doing loads of stuff like that. There's three main things. I'm only going to talk about a couple of them, but there's the structure, which from feedback you've noticed I've picked up on people's report formats, making sure you're using headings, page numbers and all this sort of stuff. So structure's there. The style, which is really up to you. You'll have your own style, but it needs to be fairly formal most of the time. We're not writing school essays or love letters. And then there's the content. That's making sure you know what you're actually writing about, what you're trying to convey to the reader. And again, all the things from the speaking thing about being concise and to the point all come into this. I have all my coursework written as professional reports. I've spent 30 years, and that's all I deal with, professional reports. The reason I prefer those is because if they're done properly, they are easy to read, they're easy to give feedback on, and you can't misunderstand things. Important, use plain English. Do not use acronyms without explaining what they are first time they appear in a document. Do not use abbreviations, colloquialisms, all that sort of stuff. You want plain English so an ordinary person can read it. We all know that government documents are quite unintelligible at times. Obviously the English is tweaked or focused towards your audience to a degree. If you're dealing with a scientific community and you're a scientist, well, you're going to be not totally plain, but you're going to try to be a bit plain. But generally we like plain English because it avoids misunderstandings. The information, you write it, okay, present it so it's easily read and easily understood and people can act upon what you're saying. Now that doesn't mean that everything is written. This could be graphics, it could be graphs, it could be tables, it could be photographs. They come into this as well, but present information that's easy to understand. Be as specific as you possibly can. Now, obviously, with assignments, you can be specific because we tell you exactly what the question is. But with a lot of the stuff, there are grey areas, and you have to decide the best way to do it. Don't waffle. Don't pad it out with words. Be specific to the problem, the question, or the review, whatever it is you're doing. Do not use long clauses if you're writing documents like tender specs and things. Do not repeat yourself, and keep the waffle down. Not so much in the assignments that you've all given me, but other assignments I've had, they got very long. They repeat and repeat and repeat because somebody's learned a single fact and they repeat it, and there's waffle and padding. Don't use buzzwords and cliches. They do not go into a professional type environment. And get the grammar right. Now, I'm partly dyslexic, so don't ask me to prove it. But Word will make sure there's no spelling mistakes in it. And you can do a grammar check as well on Word, and there are settings in that as to the type of grammar it's writing. If you're writing a professional report or a fiction novel, it's all different settings. And if in doubt, and I always do this with anything important for me, proofread it and get someone else to proofread it. My wife reads most of my reports for me and picks things up. So be careful with the grammar, silly typing errors and that. Apparently a single spelling mistake in, say, a CV or a resume can make sure you're thrown in the bin. And there's research proven that in the business world, if there's a spelling mistake or something in a submission from another business, it reduces the chance of getting the work by around 70%. It's unbelievable, isn't it? The structure you're going to follow, and this is still doing the professional report thing, so sit down and clarify your thoughts and what is the purpose of the report, the document you're writing, the communication, as we say here, before you even put pen to paper, finger to keyboard, anything. You can brainstorm it on a little notepad or something if you want to. In business communications, and we treat this as business we're doing here, the clarity is more important than the style. So it's got to be to the point, clear, easy to read. With an assignment question, it may seem clear to you, but it's obvious, not you lot, but the other ones I've got, that they've not clarified their thoughts and the purpose of it, and they miss out parts of the question and waffle. So very quickly identify the key points, facts and themes. Don't need to say much more about that. That's really coming out. The facts are coming out if you researched whatever you did. This is the one where using headings and subheadings as you set up a blank document. Decide on a logical order for what you're going to say, what you're going to type. When you've clarified your purpose and you've got your key facts, you can turn those into headings and subheadings so you don't miss things later on. Compose, this is your executive summary or your introduction and your conclusion at the end. They both need to be strong because they stick in the minds of the reader. The introduction needs to be quite snazzy and to the point because it's going to grab the attention of the reader and they want to read the rest of the report. Quite often, higher level executives only read the executive summary. And the conclusion sticks in your mind. It's the last thing you read, so the conclusion is a softer version, almost, of the executive summary. Something that crops up most of the time with university type work, and I've seen it in some professional reports, use short paragraphs and short sentences. Don't use long ones. They are hard to read and you get confused. Try to keep one idea, one fact, one subject, one part of what you're talking about into a single paragraph. Try not to spread over more than one paragraph for it. And the point you're talking about goes in the first line. And then you put all this supporting stuff, all your research and your opinion follows afterwards. That way you know why you're reading something. Make the key points stand out and the sections and the facts. So use headings, use subheadings, use bullet points, use graphs and tables. It lets the reader really quickly flick through it and pick up the main points. just to reiterate that the headings and the subheadings and that should be numbered. Anything else like pictures and figures and graphs, they should all be referenced as well. They should all go into a table about figures. I thought that was a blank page for a minute there. I'm just having a short one. I haven't even had a drink yet. If you've got multiple topics, then number them. Basically, that means that each separate topic will have its own heading, main heading, and would start on a new page. We would normally set it up as a section break. Make sure, and people miss this one. Oh no, I've got American speller on. I hate Zs. Make sure you put a capital on the first letter of each sentence. It's surprising how often that seems to be missed. Be thorough. So you've done all the initial preparation for the report. You've written it, you've proofread it. Be thorough as you go through, and be thorough that you've covered everything you need to. Be accurate. This is where your research and your facts come in. Don't put things in if you're going to guess. You'll get caught out. Be coherent. That doubles up with being a logical progression through the report. You don't want to have to keep jumping backwards and forwards to try and make head or tail of what you've written. And the old adage of less is more holds totally true for these reports. You do not have to give somebody thousands and thousands of words. You just need to give them the minimum that's needed to get the point across, to answer the question. The less you write, the less chance there is it's going to be misunderstood. Don't use jargon. Well, I can't really say don't use jargon. I did say it. If you have to use jargon, explain it the first time it appears in the document. Just, And when you get to your summary and that, you want a call to action. You've got to give people a little prod to go, now you've read all this, we've got to do something. Whether it's another report, don't know. But when you give them a call to action, say, well, look, we need to do it, don't give them too many choices, because if you give people more than about 2 or 3 choices, they can't do it. And you'll end up with people picking different choices and then arguing about it, and you may not get a consensus of opinion. So try to give them 1 or 2. You're really pushing them the way you want to go. Standing in front of people, this is the one most people seem to hate. The first time I ever stood in front of a crowd, I'd started my first lecturing job in the UK, and we had all the new intakes and that were there, along with a lot of prospective students, like an open day sort of thing, and they wanted me just to give a quick 5-minute introduction to the building surveying degree, what it was. Okay, I thought, can't be too bad, a few mums and dads. I'd only ever done project meetings before, maximum of about 20 people. So they put me in this little side door, go up a couple of steps. I'm standing on the stage on my own in a very large theatre with over 300 people sitting there looking at me. Well, I did have tight underpants on, so it was quite safe. However, that was a baptism of fire. I remember what somebody told me, and I've said it in here somewhere. He said, just look at them all and imagine they're all naked. And you won't be worried about them. Well, that was all right if you look at the right people. So when you stand up in front of people, and you might just be talking to people, you might be doing a slideshow, a PowerPoint, whatever, you've got to be passionate about what you're doing. Because it comes across if you're not passionate. You listen to most of these lectures. I try desperately to be passionate, but it's difficult to get it across just in your voice. But some of them I've listened to, I've either fallen asleep or I've been looking for a sharp object to slit my wrists. So you've got to be passionate. Your audience will pick up on this. And connect with the audience. Involve them. You'll find comedians do that by picking on a heckler or asking questions of the individual members of the audience. They're only doing that to get the audience to engage with them. And you can do the same thing. So if somebody's sitting in your group, and I do this one, and their mobile phone goes off, I will start to make a joke. I try not to be sarcastic, because that can be a bit hurtful sometimes, but just make a general, nice, subtle joke about them. Gets the rest on side. Focus on the needs of your audience, which basically, if you know why they're coming, that's what you focus on. So if we've got people coming to talk about a particular course that we provide at university, I will do a presentation exactly about that course, tweaked to the age profile of the people that are there. I tend to ignore the parents a bit. If I'm doing a project meeting, I know what the needs are of the engineer, the valuer, the contractor, the subcontractor. So I can focus on those. So you just focus on the needs. Again, it's a way of saying not waffling too much. Keep it simple, stupid. I could say that about anything, couldn't I? Don't try to make your presentation too clever, too whiz-bang. The more whiz-bang you go, the more animations, the more music, the more chance there is it's not going to work. And we've all seen lectures here, don't know if any of mine have done it yet, where whoever's doing the lecture can't even operate the PowerPoint and computer. So keep it simple, okay? Concentrate on whatever the main message is. What are you trying to get across to the audience? That's what you concentrate on. There'll be lots of little things around the edge that you can pick up on, but they're not the main part of the message, and you're not going to have a lot of time to do this. These things we're doing here, although they are presentations, they're recorded, they're lectures, and I don't stick to the time limit because I know you can watch as much as you want, and then you can pause it, go away, have a beer, glass of wine, then you can come back an hour later and watch the other half of it. So you can watch it in time intervals that suit you. But when you're standing out on the stage, it's a little bit different. You're up on the stage, you have all these lovely little people looking at you, and you stand there thinking they are looking at me. In reality, they're probably looking at the ceiling or they're looking at your PowerPoint. But you have to smile, you have to be happy, and you have to make eye contact with them. I tend to pick out a few nice ladies in the audience and I'll keep making eye contact with them. Of course, they're sitting there thinking, he's looking at me, but then about 20 people around her think, he's looking at me, because they can't tell which one. So you pick people in the audience and you talk to them. And you generally begin to forget the rest of them, and it's not quite so confronting then. You've got to grab their attention at the very beginning. So something has to grab their attention, even if it's got nothing to do with your presentation. People can do, they can tell a joke, or they can have something, anything to grab the attention of them. And then you've got their attention for the whole time. And then when you're standing up there, the general adage, the general guidance is no more than 10 slides, 10 overheads, 10 PowerPoints. Limit the actual presentation to 20 minutes. That doesn't mean the question afterwards. 20 minutes is nothing, by the way. And because you're going to be standing in front of a large group of people and it's on a big screen and it's being projected or whatever, or on a big TV, then you must make sure your font size is quite big, especially for the oldies. 28 to 30 point is quite good for a large screen. Not so important for what I'm doing with you now, because you'll be looking at you're looking directly at your laptop or whatever. You're quite close to it, and you get a PDF print out anyway. So, but when you're doing it live to an audience, like if I was doing it in a lecture theatre with real people, I'd be following not the 20-minute part. We normally do 35-40 minutes, and then we have a tea break, or coffee, or smoko, or whatever you want to call it. But that's a general guide for you there. Whilst you're standing up on the stage, make sure your voice doesn't become monotone. You've got to vary the speed of your voice and slow down a little bit if you want to, and change the pitch up and down, up and down. And that, if you're passionate about what you're presenting, that will happen automatically. Okay? So as long as you're passionate, you get excited about it, yes. But if you're not into it, you will come across really, like some other the lectures we get. Body language. Everybody talks about body language. I'm surprised the term body language isn't politically incorrect nowadays. But, so things to do. You're up on the stage. They're watching you, and this would apply if you were actually being, if I was being videoed and you could see me at the side of this presentation, which I deliberately don't do because I think it's distracting. You can see what I look like at the tutorials. Bad luck. But body language, don't put your hands behind you. Look, you see a lot of people will do that. Don't shove them in your pockets. Don't cross your arms. and don't march all over the stage. You move a little bit on the stage. I mean, it's just as bad to stand absolutely still behind the lectern. If you see people behind one of those speakers' lecterns and they're gripping the sides of it, that's as bad as walking around the stage. It's a balancing act, really. So sometimes when I've got a presentation, I'm talking about building materials or something, I'll make sure that the brick is not near the concrete block, which is not near the timber joist. So I've got a reason to walk around. I also upset people sometimes because I actually walk into the audience. In my case, they're lectures generally, and I will walk in there, and it throws people because they can't turn around and look at you, but they've got to look at the screen, and you can see what they're doodling as well. Oh, but it does get them engaged a little bit, and you'll see this on chat shows and things. They do that going to the audience, and your gestures. No crossed arms and that. You should be open and inviting to people. You should be welcoming. So your arms should be down by your side. When you do show your hands, they should be shown almost open, palms towards the audience. I think that welcoming is subconsciously showing you've not got a weapon or something. Be confident and just be yourself. Be relaxed, not drunk. I've seen some people try to present and they've had a little bit too much Dutch courage, so don't overdo that. And enjoy it. It's actually quite fun when you get the hang of this, even though a lot of people are frightened. Remember, you know the subject. You've researched the subject. You've learnt the subject. You wrote the presentation. And you know the subject better than the audience. I mean, if the audience knew it like you did, then they'd be presenting it, and they wouldn't be paying or coming to see you do it. So you're the person who knows that subject. You may not know a lot about the subject. You may only know what you've got in front of you there, but it's enough. And if you really get bored, and I'll get told this loads of times, you'll read this loads of times, and it's actually fairly true, visualise the audience naked if you want to, or something like that. Visualise them all as clowns. And that tends to diffuse the stress that you might be under. So I think you could do those quite easily. Then this is so simple. This is like you'll go, what do you tell us this for? Information technology competence. This will come out all the time. You've got to know how to use search engines, i.e. Google and Firefox. You've got to know how to use them, and there's a few specialist ones like Google Scholar you can use them. How to use keyword searches, and how to identify, sort out all the rubbish that you get from the useful stuff you get. This is something that the Year 1 students really struggle with. They think it's God's honest truth when it comes out of Google. It's not. You know, Wikipedia, wow. Wikipedia is not brilliant. I mean, because anybody can edit it. What Wikipedia is useful for is showing you the references they've used, which are normally much better than what they've got. You've got to be able to use a word processor, like Microsoft Office package, so Word. You've got to be able to set it up. You've got to be able to use a template. You've got to be able to use the spell checker. How to put in words in bold, underline them. How to format it. So all of that stuff needs to be done. And luckily, there's loads of templates out there for it. Spreadsheets, again, we're thinking Excel. There are other ones out there, Microsoft Office. You need to know the basics on how to set up a spreadsheet, enter data into fields, add them up, do a few other bits, do a little graph. Both of these things for Word and Excel, they are fantastic idiot's guides to using both of these on YouTube. They're just brilliant. So just go to YouTube if you're struggling, and they've got quite advanced ones as well. Keyboard shortcuts, they will depend on the software that you've got, but Excel and Word have got some shortcuts which are quicker than using the mouse. You can save. Some people reckon you could save 30 minutes a day by using shortcuts. I use a lot of Photoshop, and I use shortcuts on the keyboard for that. You've got to know how to save the work. Just clicking save normally goes to a hard drive. Hopefully, if you're working for a company, they're backing it up for you. But you also, I know you'll do, you've got to be able to use USBs and external hard drives to be able to take mobile data. And I could say you need to know how to use the cloud storage now, like Google Docs or Dropbox or OneDrive, the Microsoft version. You need to know how to use email. the basics in email, you know, how to reply, how to put CC copies in, how to set up a signature block, and that sort of stuff. And the calendar, you need how to use a calendar. We use Microsoft Outlook, but I know Gmail's got a calendar in it as well. How to use it, how to delegate things, how to block out whole days, how to do repetitive, reoccurring appointments, and it helps you schedule things. So yeah, it's good. It's good. And then you get to the specialist software that you might use, like project management software, which could be as simple as Microsoft Project, which we use a bit. There are much more complicated ones out there that you may use depending on your work. Photo ones, I mean, I use Photoshop quite deeply because of my professional photography. CAD, AutoCAD, that sort of thing, a few of those out there, you need to use those. You may be working in an environment where you've got order management systems or whatever, so they're the ones you use in your jobs basically, and they normally give you a bit of training. Now, if you've got any questions, put them on the Q&A so everyone can see them. Apart from that, my best friend Dexter looks like he's confused, just like I am. We will talk to whoever decides to turn up for the tutorial tomorrow on Thursday. Hope you're all having a good time, and we will see you at the tutorial.